about Shakeology. We're going to talk about the power of it, and we're going to talk on a broader spectrum of how the deeper value of Shakeology. It's not just helping your digestion. It's not just having some protein in it. There's a lot going on, and I'm hoping to cram this in 29 minutes and 15 seconds so that you get a greater context of that, okay? So, power of Shakeology. I'm going to cruise through my journey a little quickly. You all can Google search and find out information about me, but the precipice for me and why it's important is because I'm passionately here, and I've dedicated my life to health, nutrition, and yes, in fact, I didn't see it coming either, but I actually super threw it coming. So a career-ending football injury my sophomore year in college moved me quickly into questioning what I wanted to do. Well, my first need was taking care of myself, so I decided to change majors, exercise physiology and nutrition, and then I realized something, this innate miracle that we get to walk around with, and this symbiosis we get with the plant world, right? So these plants have a relationship with us on the planet, and they help to facilitate health, thriving, changing our lives for the better. So as you can see, I've done a lot of things. Largely, the best education for me was traveling to these places. So meeting, this is in Peru, in the Amazon, the Shakeology people. Unbeknownst to me, we ended up staying there a little too long because our boat broke down, and but they gave me their one and only mosquito net, and a colleague of mine and myself and I, we stayed on a plank of wood and slept there that night. But beautiful people. The point to some of this stuff is I want you to look at these people. This was in Olien, Peru. This next one is one of my favorite pictures. This was in Bhutan, deep in the Himalayas, just south of China and just to the west of Nepal. And I was digging into medicinal mushrooms, and also 80% of mushrooms are poisonous, so you want to stay away from those as well. And then this one was I got to ride a semi tame water buffalo, and I just couldn't help myself. So this was in the Philippines, looking at all kinds of different elixirs and tonics and uses of coconut. The point to all of that is that this is my education. I have been kind of impregnated with a little bit of information, and then upon the journey, every journey I take gives me a cacophony of new experience, and that experience is all about the people. It's all about where these ingredients come from. It's all about how they use them. And it's all about how we can best, and this is how it relates to you guys, how we best can utilize the power that's in there, the compounds that are there that have been used. Sometimes some of these compounds have been used, and these plants have been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So how can we make that journey into this beautiful bag that shows up on your doorstep? And so I want to collapse this dissonance and this distance between what is in that bag that's way, way beyond a protein shake, okay? So, a little again, I don't even know why I put this up there, but it's a book I wrote because I believe that the foundation of health is really, really important. And then when you add superfoods into the foundation, you exponentially get that back in return, a greater sense of health and vitality. So, I'm going to take you, the final slide, I'm going to reveal it now, is a summary of what a path of an ingredient goes through. But I'm going to set a context for you right now to talk about what is really going on with Shakeology. And it's not all about the probiotics, the prebiotics, digestive enzymes, but there is some of that too. But there's a context here that I don't think has been communicated very well about why we need to consume this stuff, why superfoods are a part of our reality, that this representation of some of the greatest botanicals in the world, this beautiful bag of Shakeology that shows up on your doorstep, of that it's not just a pretty bag, and it's not just a shy of $1 billion company. In fact, I don't care about any of that. I care none about it. What I care about, what I've dedicated my life to, is making sure that the ingredients are what they're supposed to be, that they don't have some of the contaminants that are showing up in the marketplace, and that we validate this stuff with our eyes, with our people. And that is something 100% that Beachbody does. Okay? So what is Shakeology? It's the kind of the biggest statement I'd make. If someone was asking me in an elevator, I'd say it's the delivery system of some of the greatest botanicals in the world. And it's so much more than this protein shake. All these ingredients are tested, clinically proven to lower cholesterol and help with vitality of the body, and so on and so forth. So what do they even say here? What's the last thing? Okay. So the context is really important to understand. So what is Shakeology not? It is not a magic bullet. Don't tell people that. It's like the same thing of, this example makes the most sense, I think. It's, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, why did they come up with that statement? Well, they come up with that statement because, there's 300 different kind of compounds in an apple that are all beneficial to the health of your body. So it's a representation of a statement that plants are powerful, and the right plants eaten over time creates change. So you don't expect to eat an apple and go like, holy shit, I'm stimulated, I'm ready to climb Mount Everest, right? Or maybe if you take focused energy or energize, maybe that's the case. Or snorted or whatever. I had to say something that's going to freak Jonathan out when I do something like this. Do not snort anything. So it's not a magic bullet. So imagine now taking that statement of an apple a day keeps the doctor away, an apple. And now, let me expand that idea a little bit. So we have how many ingredients in Shakeology roughly?
70.
Okay, 70. 70 of not apples. We have 70 of the greatest botanicals that we can get in this form functionally on the planet. So if you do that every day over time, what do you think is going to happen? Are you going to be better or worse? Is it a little better than maybe saying it's an apple a day keeps the doctor away? The point is, it's not a magic bullet, but it is there to deliver on something we need desperately, and that is this dense nutrition. And I'm going to get a little bit into the context of what that means as well. Okay, so, not artificial. Okay, so we spend a lot of time on artificial colors, flavors, sweeteners, preservatives. And this was probably the biggest challenge of the formulation of Shakeology, the unsexy version that there is no way I or we were going to compromise on this. And believe me, the flavoring systems, the flavoring world, and all of that stuff, and the subcategories within the FDA allowing certain things to be there, but it's really like, yeah, but we don't want that there. And the fights that I would have, the screaming matches of owners of flavoring companies, that literally, I was like, what's going on? They're like, it's natural, it's natural, it's natural. We tested it, it wasn't. And I was like, you're telling me it's natural, but it isn't. What the hell are you doing? So then I looked at the bylaws and I'm like, oh, a certain amount of level, a certain amount is okay to be under their natural guidelines. So we had to create new guidelines for us. Okay. Also, what Shakeology is not. Shakeology has 0 ingredients, GMO ingredients, super important if you haven't looked into genetically modified ingredients, educate yourself, avoid those at all costs. It's an experiment you don't want to take for yourself. So 100% supplier guarantee. This is going to tweak here. What is Shakeology not? It's not expensive. Sit with that for a second. And if you start to understand where I'm going to end you on this talk, you will start to expand on the level, the journey, the effort that it takes to not just throw some powders in a bag, that we have relationships, that we have people out around the world cultivating, finding, processing, testing all of these botanicals. So when I'm on a mountain, I was in China, and rhodiola actually is one of my favorite adaptogens of Shazandra. Is in Shakeology. Rhodiola is in the boost, in the focused energy. I was on a mountain at 17,000 feet, me and this Tibetan guy. Because of staying in shape, I was able to follow him. Everyone else, 20 people, couldn't even make it. I'm sitting there, I have rhodiola in my hand on the side of a mountain. And I just, in that moment, going, if people realized, truly realized, the value of what they have and the journey that it takes for this thing to get from this mountaintop safely and effectively, which is a big conversation, which is not necessarily what the industry has set forth, that they would value what it is that this really is. And then again, I'm already revealing my last slide, times that by 60 plus ingredients, and you're starting to understand the level at which I've dedicated myself to, and Beachbody has backed that and funded the unsexy parts of making sure that Shakeology is what it's supposed to be and what it said it needs to be. Okay? So, what is Shakeology? All of these things. So prebiotics, probiotics. Easy to say those words, right? Why is that so bloody important? Because this is supporting one of the greatest systems of our body. This is supporting the immune system, the microbiome. This is giving food for good digestive flora. 80% of your feel-good molecules, your serotonin, is produced in your gut. I'm not making the claim that you will have all of these things, but all I'm saying is prebiotics and probiotics are things that support the body being healthy, and when the body's healthy, especially the microbiome, it can radically affect how you feel about yourself and how things like that occur. And I'm just going to stop there because I know Jonathan's sweating back there. But the point is, start to learn about this stuff. They're not just buzzwords. There's some real thought that went into the responsibility that I took on, that Isabel took on, and that Carl took on, in that this was a responsibility. What do people need? What do they require in this day and age? And that's how Shakeology was birthed. Enzymes are behind not just digestive, they're behind every metabolic process in the body. When you lack enzymes, you're breaking down. It's like wanting to build a road and all of the stuff gets, the concrete and sand and all that stuff shows up, and then you have no labor force. You have no one to kind of actually take those materials and put them and make a road. So that's kind of what enzymes are in the body. They help facilitate, they help break down, and make what wasn't possible. Okay? Antioxidants, phytonutrients. What does that mean? Well, antioxidants are fighting the battle of us breaking down over time. If you're consuming foods that are high in free radicals, I'll give you a hint. It's processed. It has golden arches. It is boxed and canned, and all of these things that largely are void in the cellular nutrients, the essence that your body can actually use, assimilate, way beyond carbs, proteins, and fats. Let's move beyond that conversation, right? This is about the nutrients that are endemically within the plant and we identify them to make sure that they're still there, and so that they deliver on what it is that they're ultimately here to do, and that's help to facilitate us. Okay? And then moving quickly, adaptogens. How many of you in here, the show of hands, have been stressed in the last week? And all of you who are not putting your hand up are totally lying. It's stress. There's stress everywhere. And stress, I'm going to get into a little further, so I'm going to hold my thought on that. But adaptogens are interesting foods. So you have maca, schizandra, cordyceps, what are some other ones further out? Astragalus, ashwagandha. All of these things are compounds within it. They're adaptogenic. So when you take them in, it's not like caffeine, where caffeine's kind of a linear shot. If you take that in, you're going to get stimulated. Adaptogens are one of those things that help modulate and deal with the effects of stress. Okay? These are some of my favorite compounds and favorite plants in the world. Okay? So these are some of the things that you have to understand. Right here are some of the most anciently used plants in the world, and we happen to have them safely and effectively in Shakeology. So then again, blend of proteins. So it's not just one, it's not just thing, it's kind of this effect that all of these proteins are essentially giving more than protein. But we put these in categories, but they're multiple amino acids, multiple different angles that they're helping facilitate in the body. Again, botanicals, beneficial compounds, plant compounds. The important thing you need to understand is we get so caught up in kind of linear thinking, certainly about health, right? So I have a heart issue, I need to go to a specialist, a heart specialist, and therefore he's going to solve my issues, and therefore this heart specialist is further and deeper away from the whole, right? He's further and deeper away from what the hell's going on in your body, and he's isolated. I'm not saying that that's not appropriate for acute things, but the context here is an apple a day keeps a doctor away. A bunch of plants that have beneficial compounds have a pleomorphic effect. So they're helping you be healthy, thrive, repair, adjust, and ultimately, I always say this, like, the main reason I am fascinated with superfoods, I'm going to jump to the next one, is that I don't want to just walk around and exist. I want to use what are available to us so that I can thrive, so that I can do what I want to do and not be limited by the limits of my body. And 99.9% of the time, we are cultivating a habit to either leave us lacking, or we're going to shift that and cultivate a habit that starts building our strength. So that's really what we're talking about. So superfoods, I love this because I never saw it until we were putting the slides together. And Oxford literally, it's always been like, well, superfoods not really, not a definition, so I'll just make up one. But now Oxford actually stepped up and they said superfood is a nutrient-dense food considered to be especially beneficial to health and well-being. Okay? So that's what a superfood is. So per calorie, this is what I say, it's got more going on that's beneficial to you than, say, a donut, right? So it's got those beneficial vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, antioxidants, and we've put those all, again, in the shake. Okay, so this is the context. This is my argument, whether I'm involved in Shakeology or not. I say this, I make this argument that because we are in a situation where we have known for a very long time, over the last 100 years, that our soils are depleted. You may or may not have heard this, but this is real. So a few of these are indication. Guess what? The number one place that has mastered monocropping and stripping soil is. Welcome to America. Right? Amazing thing that they created this monocropping agricultural revolution, increased our population, but also increased the potential for disease and ultimately not doing well. Okay? And then again, down the list, you can see that all major countries are suffering. And then you take things like this. So one indicator, so we have like 90% of us are suffering from potassium deficiency. So potassium, it's an electrolyte. It's one mineral. These are just studies that grab one thing and vastly see how undernourished we are. So, now the drum roll. So, if we are then already starting from an undernourishment, and then you add on the stress, the weird stress we're under. And I'm not just talking about your emotional stress or you're bummed out with your partner. I'm talking about the toxin. There's 70,000 new toxins emitted in our atmosphere. Of that, maybe 10% are actually tested. So we are getting rained down by toxins. We're getting hit with EMFs that, if you don't know, our body's electrical. So if you think sitting in a building under lights, like I am, doesn't affect you over time, it absolutely does. Our food has toxins. We've made up frankenfood. We've created weird products. It changed these things called xenobiotics, where they're literally man-made. They're not food anymore. So we are in this weird place. So now add up, we're already mineral deprived, and now you add up just this gnarly kind of stress. And the more you need stress, the more you have stress, the more nutrient needs you have. Okay? This is my argument for why we need nature's bounty. Why we need these nutrient-dense foods. Okay? So, next one. So, really, this is ultimately about helping your body with stress. It's about putting the quality back into your life. I mean, how many of you have stories where you did a few adjustments and you started eating well, you started drinking a little more water, you started drinking Shakeology consistently, and you had benefits. The thing is that it's not like, again, we got to get off of this idea that if I drink it today or this week, that it's going to cure all of my issues. Because those issues, unless you have literally a congenitive problem, an acute accident, you have participating in opening the door for chronic disease. So the idea here is that let's create healthy habits again. Exercise, eating well, eating your superfoods, drinking your shake, to help shut those doors down so that you can actually not have to drag this chemistry set around. And it's amazing to me that someone of 30, 40, 50, 60 even uses age as some sort of excuse not to live. And I don't know about you guys, but that's not what it is. It's about the habits that you have set for yourself in your life. And that is going to contribute to your health in your life, or it's not. So where are your priorities? We have created such an amazing shake here and backed it up that we've eliminated the barrier to entry. I spent over a year on the formulation. You wouldn't think it should be, but over a year on the formulation just working on the taste so that we could overcome the somewhat strong botanicals that are in there so that it wasn't a barrier. Like I would For me, I plug my nose and throw things back. I don't care. But if you don't have that experience, and if you're coming from the place of you've been manipulated by your own senses, then that barrier is, I'm going to throw up eating this, and that's not going to help people. So we spent a lot of time making sure it's safe, like I said, with the flavoring, no artificial colors, flavors, and sweeteners, but that we had to put the extra work in so that it was actually a healthy, good tasting alternative. Okay? So, again, a little more on superfood that kind of covered that. We'll switch to so this is the unsexy and really, really, really important aspect of our quality assurance. And I'm gonna jump to this last slide. I'm doing so good on time. I'm going to jump to this last slide in a second that gives another context to what I'm just saying here, is that we visit the farmers, we audit facilities, meaning that we send our own people around the world following the tracks of maybe some strange discovery years before that I had, and the quality assurance team comes in going, cool, that's all fun and games, Darin, but where's the process? And is it going to meet our quality standards? And I tell you what, unfortunately, most facilities fail. We fail, I think, 90% of them. So we have to come in and bring these countries, ultimately, the culture up to the standards that we need. So it's a big deal that a lot of these exotic superfoods are conveniently in your shape. And let me just say, millions and millions of dollars are spent with the quality assurance team flying around the world to make sure what's in that bag is in that bag, and what's not in that bag is not in that bag. And many, many companies cannot say that. Because A, they don't have the money, they don't have the right placement of passion versus care, and this is extremely, extremely important, and ultimately puts a line in the sand of us versus anyone else. Now, the thing is that you can't tell by turning over a label. It's important to look at labels. Absolutely, it's important to question. We get questions every day. Hey, what about this? What about that? Someone said this is not what it's supposed to be. I'm like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but this is our quality assurance standards, and this is what we do. So, again, these are the layers that we need to start communicating so that we very clearly, not marketing, just real stories, real things we're doing, real people we're affecting around the world, real quality assurance standards that are happening. And this is ultimately the journey of a superfood. Okay? So I started to talk about it, and you're starting to get it, right? So I threw this thing together. Thank God Jonathan didn't annihilate this thing with his quality standards, but this is it. This is the path of the superfood. So this is, let's call this Shazandra. Let me give you an example, right? I like her. It's one of my favorite herbs. It's a great name for like a dog. It definitely is going to be a name for my female dog. So let's say number one. I gotta use my glasses for this because I don't want to skip anything. But let's say number one, superfood hunting. So identifying, just going out. And I've gotten myself in so many situations. It happens all kinds of ways. I have people reach out to me. I have things I discovered on another trip. There's a million different things that can happen to kind of lead me to this place of like, holy shit, this is amazing and no one knows about it. Okay? Number two, meeting the farmers. Then who's actually growing it? Who's actually doing it? Then we get into testing. Then we see what the quality is. Then we start setting up the growing standards. How can we utilize this plant? And then we harvest correctly. When's that time? What's going to not denature this thing? Because ultimately we have to move into processing correctly. How do you get this powder from this thing? So it's carefully, sometimes an extraction process takes place in terms of Shazandra, or for the most part, most of these are whole food based. So we have to carefully dry them and not burn them, annihilate them, and allow for the compounds not to be there. So processing and then testing. So now we're testing, we're fingerprinting. What does that compound, what is it? What's in there? And is it at the level that we want? Okay? Also, what is not there? The environment's got a lot more environmental pollutants, so we have to test for those things so that it doesn't end up in our product. So that's tested in the country of origin, and ultimately that's packaged and sent individually. It leads to our main facility. We have a couple of co-packers that take the entry point of all the ingredients, and then quarantined, tested again as an individual, and then ultimately it gets its way back to an alchemical blend, a particular process of blending to make sure that everything is blended correctly, uniform, and then it's shipped and shows up to your door. And Shazandra started I'm working on another project, I can't even say it, so I'm going to just stop myself, but it's a very cool potential of a preservation aspect of Shazandra that hopefully we can get locked in. But Shazandra came from the forests in unknown China, and that had to move through this process. And now, extrapolate that. Every ingredient, different country, different environment, different mountaintop, different jungle, and that ultimately is the journey of Shakeology. I hope that made a little more sense and created a little more context for you. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of thought, feelings, and emotion attached to this thing, and share that. And my word, because it represents so many other things, is Shakeology. It represents passion, it represents results, it represents transformation of not only the people that grew it, but also you that consume it. So it represents a lot to me, and it represents the forging of possibilities that we need and the plant power of that, okay? So I appreciate your time. I'm very much grateful for the work and you taking this and sharing it with the world.